Hello and welcome to Stranded with a Stranger. This is our mid-episode episode where you get to send in your lists to us and we will read one out a week. So if you do want to be a part of this, then please send in your list of 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 non-magic item that you use for magic to sales@alakazam.co.uk. Now, when you send that in, please send it with the subject line, my desert island list. That way it will come through to me and we can get you on air. That being said, let's get into today's episode and introduce today's stranded stranger, which is Scott K. Ratner. Scott says, I've been performing magic for nearly half a century, and I'm proud that I'm probably among the very few magicians still around who can say they had their magic act publicly praised by Di Vernon. Although this claim, whilst is true, is much less impressive when one knows the entirety of the story, which is why I seldom provide the entirety of the story. I want to know what the whole story is now, obviously. Over the decades, I've acquired a certain level of technical proficiency, although to suggest anything more than mere competency would be overstating the case. And whilst I certainly don't limit my repertoire to self-working tricks, I don't like to make things difficult for myself either. Ultimately, I subscribe to the notion that effect is everything, and I happen to love good gimmicks. I do admire technical skill and recognise the freedom and opportunities it provides. It's definitely an advantage to be able to have any and all props examined, and I envy those who can entertain for hours at a time with just a shuffled, ungimmicked deck. My desert island selections reflect that viewpoint and are largely very practical, and are mostly fairly easy to perform. I think I'd spend most of my time on my other major interest, puzzle plot detective fiction writing, really a related subject, and would probably be using magic primarily for social purposes to amuse the natives, rather than to challenge myself. I still really love magic, but it's no longer the every waking hour obsession it used to be. Thus, my selections are primarily those that have served me the best over the years, including a couple of newcomers that I consider upgrades to my earlier standbys. Also, I assume that many will listen to this podcast with ever an ear out for recommendations of workers, and I really couldn't recommend these tricks more highly. Excellent introduction there. Wow, so first off, the Di Vernon story. We may have to get Scott to write in and give us the full story on that. That sounds very interesting. And you mentioned your puzzle plot detective fiction writing. I've always thought that magicians writing a lock room mystery is always the best way to go, because I certainly loved Jonathan Creek growing up. If you don't know what Jonathan Creek is, he was a magician who used to solve locked room mysteries, but those locked room mysteries were always super clever. They were like mini magic tricks, basically. There was always a clever method behind it. So that's a really interesting little hobby to have as a sideline. So let's see what Scott's list consists of. Number 1, Sidewalk Shuffle. I make mine out of parts from Skinner's Ultimate Card Monty because although it's a bit difficult justifying carrying 3 cards of the exact same value, I think blank cards are even a bit more difficult to justify. It's a terrific effect with a powerful closing punch. What I also love about this trick is its varied methods seem to eliminate the possibility of each other, and its only real discrepancy is minor and quick. I also do the jumbo version of Sidewalk Shuffle for parlour and stage, but among my 8 tricks, I'd include just the standard size. Absolutely. Now, any form of free card Monty, and there are lots and lots of versions out there, are great. But what I love about Sidewalk Shuffle is that there are lots of different stages, and like Scott brilliantly put it, they really do cancel each other out, and each stage is really well considered and thought through. And of course, you have a kicker ending that they will just not see coming. So absolutely superb choice in number 1. Let's go to number 2. 3 ropes and a baby. Professor's Nightmare may not be the most powerful effect of all time, but it's undeniably still quite strong. And I'd say it's among the most nearly perfect of all tricks in terms of checking the boxes of the working magician's considerations. considerable impact, instant reset, no table required, begins and ends clean, is repeatable, won't be ruined by the next table seeing it, props are easily replaceable, wide age suitability, hardly any angle concerns, can play for both stage and close-up, and really doesn't even take up all that much pocket space. I use fairly thin corded ropes for walk around, which can still be seen at quite a distance. The only possible drawback is over familiarity, and I feel that very slight drawback is overcome by the extension of the effect supplied by either fiber optics or 3 ropes and a baby. I think my own routine is actually a combination of the two. Indeed, I find that the routine really hits its stride right just as the original Professor's Nightmare part ends. There's usually a gentle indication of appreciation when the ropes become the same size, but a genuine gasp when 2 of the equal size ropes become one long one, and the reaction just grows from there. Absolutely. Now, in terms of selling a trick, that list that you just gave, that's going to make anyone want to check this routine out. Now, I dare say that most people listening to this will know Professor's Nightmare in one form or another, but Scott mentioned their fiber optics and 3 ropes and a baby. Do go check them out. There are some really wonderful routines that really do elevate this even more. So yeah, do go check them out. But again, in terms of the 2 tricks that we've had so far, Sidewalk Shuffle and 3 ropes and a baby, very much working routines. Excellent. So let's see where number 3 takes us. So in his 3rd position, Scott put Entourage. Of all the B-wave type effects with which I'm familiar, B-wave, Twisted Sisters, Duplicity, and this one, each of which has its own pros and cons, this one is still my favourite, as well as one with the most coherent, straightforward narrative. I really love it. And the instant reset, no table needed, minimal pocket space, etc. doesn't hurt either. Absolutely. This is a phenomenal trick. And I think it's had a recent resurgence in our community. I think people are checking it out again. It really is a very, very clever, clean, direct routine, especially if you want a cool packet trick. And again, packet tricks seem to be popping up more and more at the moment. There's some really clever packet tricks around. So absolutely, if you've not heard of Entourage, Scott's got it bang on there. It's an absolutely phenomenal trick. And that leads us to his 4th position. So in his 4th spot, Scott has put Volition. As with Sidewalk Shuffle, the deceptive brilliance of this effect is that its multiple methods effectively cross-eliminate each other. The truly free choice of the first part of the routine effectively discounts even the very slight possible transparency of the equivoque aspect of the free will principle, which is why I prefer Volition to the original free will effect, which is still very good. Absolutely. Volition now, Joel is just super, super smart. And I remember he had his 2 booklets out before he sort of went to Penguin with these as downloads. And I remember absolutely loving Volition. So if you are unfamiliar with it, the idea is that there are 3 business cards or billets or whatever you want, and they mix them up and place one of them into their pocket. Now, think about that for a second. When you think about the free will plot, you should instantly know that there's something obviously special about this routine in order for this to be such a free choice. And then they end up with one in either hand, and the one in the left hand says left hand, the one in the right hand says right hand, and the one in the pocket says pocket. And Scott brilliantly put there that those methods really do cancel each other out, which is why this is such a wonderful routine. Now, I do believe that this is a download now, but I would go and check out Joel's booklets as well, because he's got lots of really clever effects, not just this one, that require very little and are the perfect routines. You know, if you get stuck out and you want something else, these routines are always good to have in your little memory bank of methods. So yeah, a wonderful, wonderful routine. Volition is excellent. And that brings us on to Scott's 5th position, and he says transient coins. My routine with this is fairly short due to my lack of versatility with coins, but With just a retention vanish, a rather heavy use of the Ramsey subtlety, and the deceptive properties of the coins themselves, I'm able to present a rather impressive few moments of magic. Excellent choice. Again, for those that don't know, transient coins is a special set of coins which would allow you to produce and vanish several coins in a very, very clean manner. Now, subsequent to that, there are lots of different coin sets that you can get. I know that this is an Alakazam podcast, but before I even started working with Alakazam, I actually took an interest in their coin sets because I'm not a massive coin worker. Much like Scott said, his lack of versatility with coins very much in the same boat as you there, Scott. But some of the coin sets are so well made and they work so conjunctively with each other that you can get some really impressive, clever routines together without having to rely on knuckle-busting moves. I'm trying to be very discreet with talking about methods. A little shout out to my favourite, which is Trebloon, which is not out yet, but it's one coming out. I've got a set of them, which I received only a few days ago, but I'm loving playing with it. And the Nightshade, which I purchased myself before I even started work with Alakazam, and I absolutely love it. But that does bring us on to number 6, the Invisible Deck. I think a most telling illustration of the strength of this effect is that I've been doing it for nearly 50 years, admittedly employing very little imagination or originality in my performance of it. I either start with an invisible deck per the original instructions, or else simply have someone name any card in the deck, and it still floors nearly all audiences. I should probably invest some time on learning some of the highly lauded newer applications and variations of the effect, but it hardly even seems necessary. And as with the Professor's Nightmare, it checks nearly all major magician considerations. Instant reset, no table required, very little angle concerns, repeatable. In fact, the rare trick that gains with a repeat. Can play for both stage and close-up, wide range suitability. Yes, I've done it successfully for kids. And it doesn't take all that much pocket space. Few dedicated decks justify the pocket space they take, but I feel this one does. It doesn't end clean, admittedly, but you can't have everything. And I've had surprisingly very few problems with people insisting on examining the deck. Absolutely wonderful choice. It's one that obviously we've had many, many times before, and we will have many, many times before, because it's just a phenomenal trick. Now, one thing that you said there is that you feel like it gains from repeat performances. Absolutely, and I think we've spoken about this on the main podcast before, how it can become a challenge trick, one where audience members can challenge you, get my card, and each time you're going to hit with that card and it's just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. It really is a wonderful trick, and I think the original routine, if that's what you're going for, there's nothing wrong with that because it's phenomenal. And that brings us to the tail end of Scott's list. Number 7, STIXX. I used to keep a hot rod with me at walk-around gigs, not because I thought it was all that great of a trick, but for the general reasons of why not. I considered it a fairly limited effect, but it took up very little pocket space and it was easy to do. It killed a couple of minutes if needed, and most importantly, it added visual variety. It's not another card trick, which is especially good when there are kids among the crowd. I'd also sometimes carry Chadlong's Flash as my non-knife colour changing knives routine, but now with STIXX I've got both of those routines and all their assets and more. I ask for a number between 1 and 10 and refer to my list of colours on Digital Force Bag. I make a list of just 10 so that I only have to swipe once, obfuscating the method even further. Because I'm including Digital Force Bag as part of the trick, I don't have to list it separately as my number 8. Am I a clever one or what? Absolutely. Very sneaky. But you are absolutely right. And your sort of choice there of, I guess, an honourable mention is Chadlong's Flash. That's also a wonderful trick. Kind of not relevant as much anymore because not many people know what flash drives are as much because, digital and everything. So I agree that this really has everything that a lot of hot rod and paddle routines had before, but so much more. There are some really clever ideas, and your method there with the digital force bag is certainly a clever way to get around that. But as you mentioned, Eric's ideas of the color force is just so clever and so clean. So I love it. It's a really good choice. That brings us to Scott's last effect, Little Bunny's card trick. I think Simon Aronson's shuffleboard is brilliant, and this is my favourite applications of its principle. The 3 recent summers, I've had a gig at a Southern California theme park doing walk-around magic as Uncle Jerry, an affable, chatty William Demarest Peter Falk type character. It was a long shift, and when my weary old legs couldn't take it anymore, I'd sit with the table with a friendly-looking family, and if after a quick trick or two, like transient coins or volition, they seemed game, I'd launch into a long-form version of this trick, and I mean a long form. My character was ideal for making lengthy digressions. This is a great book. They're making it into a Netflix series with Benedict Cumberbatch as Little Bunny. I don't really think he's got the acting chops or the ears for it, but I'm going to watch it with an open mind. Sometimes I'd eat up a good 20 minutes on this trick, and since I was entertaining guests, I didn't get in trouble for sitting down for nearly half an hour. The key difficulty magicians seem to have with this trick is audience management. Participants invariably turning cards upside down in shuffling, etc. I entirely avoid this by doing all the handling of the cards myself, but have them make a series of convex and convoluted choices. No one is ever able to backward engineer it, and indeed the biggest problem I have with it is getting the spectators not to skip pages when reading the book at the end. The ending always gets a great response, and it's a conversation as a trick. Absolutely. Now, I'm not going to lie, I had to Google this one to find out what it is. And essentially, it is a version of Simon Aronson's shuffleboard, but with a really quirky book reveal, like a storybook, which I think is really clever. It's a really wonderful idea, especially if you have family groups. I think this could play really well. Now, there are obviously lots of different versions of shuffleboard which have come out, and you can sort of make this your own, but that's what I sort of love about shuffleboard. I think it's another one of those effects where it's great to have the method in your brain, because you can use maybe photographs or train tickets, whatever you want. You can completely change this for a different show. If you've got a themed show, even a Halloween show, you can really theme this up and make the method work for you. So it's a wonderful routine to learn, and that's a really cool version. Now, Scott has given us some honourable mentions as well. He says, honourable mentions would go to Strange Travellers, great trick. Soft Nest of Wallets, I seem to break all versions of Ring Flight, great choice. John Bannon's Power of Poker, another everyday carry. And Sponge Balls, because, well, sponge balls. Yep, Strange Travellers, I think we've spoken about that before. Nest of Wallets is a classic for good reason. It's just a foolproof routine, really, isn't it? And John Bannon's Power of Poker, excellent. Sponge Balls, absolutely. I've seen some people, especially this week, we were out filming some stuff, and watching people's reactions to Sponge Balls really made me want to start them back up again. They are just so cool. Now, that brings us to Scott's 2 curveball items, his book and his non-magic item. Let's go for his book first. So, I'm tempted to go with one of the many great books by John Bannon or Ryan Matney, spoiler alert, or Jamie D. Grant's The Approach, which has helped me a lot, if for no other reason than to remind me of the things I should have already known. But I think I'll go with George B. Anderson's Magic Digest. It was one of the first magic books I read, but I'm convinced this is more than just nostalgia. It's a damn fine book. Great choice. I did have to Google this one, but it is still available on some secondhand book sites. So I do think this is one that I'm going to order just to add to my collection and have a read through. So thank you so much for that, Scott. And it does bring us to his non-magic item. A really interesting one. He's put on here moisturizing oil. I use Magician's Choice, but I'm sure that there are similar products not made for magicians. Whether my skin is getting drier with old age, or they're making roughed cards more difficult to separate, or both, I find a drop of this every couple of hours helps a lot. Great choice. It's again, I don't think it's one that we've had, but certainly a lot of performers have either a moisturizer or something like that on them. It really does help, especially with card magic. It really does help make things just a little bit easier. So what a wonderful list, Scott. Thank you so much for sharing that. And like I said, if you want to share with us the Di Vernon story, I can always put that at the beginning of another episode, so do get in contact with us. But overall, a great choice. We've got Sidewalk Shuffle, 3 Ropes and a Baby, or Professor's Nightmare, Entourage, Volition, Transient Coins, Invisible Deck, STIXX, Little Bunny's Card Trick. For your book, we have George B. Addison's Magic Digest, and your non-magic item is a moisturizing oil. What a great list of tricks there. So thank you once again, Scott. Now, if you want your list read out, remember, please send it into sales@alakazam.co.uk. Do what Scott did there and give us a brief little bit about you at the beginning, just so that we get a good idea of the sort of performer that you are. And then obviously give us your list as well. So thank you very much. Don't forget, we'll be back this coming Friday with our main episode. And we will hear from you all next week on another episode of Stranded with a Stranger. Goodbye.
Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you about Alakazam Unlimited. This is the best streaming platform in the world, I'm telling you now. With Alakazam Unlimited, you get access to over 150 magic routines. This is video performances and explanations. We have card magic, coin magic, kids magic, rope magic, mentalism, stage, parlor, impromptu. We've got you covered. All of this for the low price of just £4.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Perfect if you've got commitment issues. Yes, I'm talking to you. Guys, you are going to absolutely love it. If you haven't joined the platform already, what the heck are you doing? Alakazam Unlimited is a streaming platform that you need to be a part of. Not only that, there is also exclusive content only available on the platform. Check it out now, alakazam.co.uk. Cheers.